Today, crucial hearings in the classified documents criminal case against former President Trump. This is over access to evidence that could impact whether the former president is tried before the November election. Court documents today, Trump and his attorneys will meet for several hours, behind closed doors with a judge without prosecutors present to discuss the details of the case. Special counsel Jack Smith's team will then meet with the judge afterwards. We're also digging further into that probe surrounding President Biden following his mishandling of classified records. Special counsel Robert Hur even saying in the report, quote, after being given multiple chances to return classified documents and avoid prosecution, Mr. Trump allegedly did the opposite. Joining us now is Robert Bittman, founder and managing partner of Bittman Law. He was also the deputy independent counsel investigating former President Bill Clinton. Good morning to you. Thank you for your time on this. Let me start with your assessment of the report. The independent counsel, Kenneth Starr, faced accusations of overreach when investigating Clinton. Do you see the same overreach here?
Well, Marni, certainly one of the similarities in this case is both Ken Starr's office, of which I was a part, and Rob Hur are being blamed for releasing a report that it wasn't even their decision to release. In our case, the House of Representatives released the report not without our approval at all or knowledge, quite frankly. And in Rob Hur's case, it was the Attorney General who released the report. Rob Hur prepared by statute, a confidential report to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General decided to release it.
And why do you think that is?
Political pressure, because I don't think that the Attorney General Garland could have withstood the pressure from both Republicans and probably Democrats to not release this independent report.
So why did the special counsel not charge the president, though, if, in fact, as we have said, his actions posed, in his words, Hur's words, a serious risk to national security?
It's a good question, because one of the things that Mr. Hur did was evaluate, and this is the job of a prosecutor, is not to just evaluate the facts against the potential defendant, but also what his defenses might be. And what Mr. Hur did in very excruciating detail was outline what his defenses, the president's defenses would be, and he found that it was not really that prosecutable case, that he would likely win at trial. And so he deferred and declined to prosecute.
And going a little bit deeper into that, there's been quite a bit of backlash, even from the president himself, in the references made to his memory. What was the reason to include that specifically in the report? Because
the statute requires that Mr. Hur present to the Attorney General a confidential report explaining his decisions. He decided to decline prosecution of the president, and he had to explain why. And so, and the reason for that is because the Attorney General has the power to overrule the special counsel. So he had to explain why he decided to decline, and he did that in detail. And I think it's perfectly appropriate.
So Biden's attorneys say it's an unnecessary dig, but you don't think so, to reference it that many times. I think there were 9 times in there, but it was the defense of why the charges weren't filed, as I understand it.
Correct. It was a defense. And I do defend it and also in this regard. Remember, the Attorney General is the supervisor of the special counsel. If the Attorney General had a problem with what was in the report, the Attorney General could have redacted it, could have not released it at all, or could have sent it back to the special counsel to say, this is in there too much, or it's inappropriate. But he didn't do that. He released it.
How about the full transcripts? Will that ever be made public?
It looks like the train is started to depart the tracks and going down the tracks, and once again, political pressure. And I think that they are going to succumb to the pressure, and I think that we probably will likely see the transcripts.
Thank you for watching. Go to NewsNationNow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.